So I don't know what the other personality types think of INFJs, but I imagine that at our best, most perceive INFJs as calm, stoic, insightful dreamers, and at our worst, they might perceive us as weirdos who are self-absorbed in their thoughts, out of touch with reality, goody two-shoe party poopers who would rather be the lone reject than to join in on some impish fun. Today, I'm going to talk about what I find is beautiful about INFJs. I decided to make this video because I am going to make a whole series talking about these struggles of being an INFJ. Because if you're an INFJ, you know that we have a lot of struggles, not just with the world, but within ourselves as well. But before I start talking about the negative things, I first wanted to celebrate the good and beautiful things about INFJs. A lot of people think that because INFJs are so rare, where we only make up 1 to 2% of the population, that being an INFJ is like cool and mystical, but it's really not. The majority of INFJs will say that they don't like themselves or that they've struggled with self-love their whole lives. And I know I used to dread and loathe myself. I hated my inner thoughts and I had low self-esteem, and I've really just gotten to the point in my life where I'm finally starting to get comfortable in my own skin and finally starting to embrace all of my weirdness and quirks. So for those of you watching this video and are like, oh look, she's making a video dedicated all to bragging about herself, know that this is not that at all. First of all, I must say be kind, because I have struggled with self-love and self-worth my entire life, and I have had to put in a ton of work to get to this point in my life where I'm finally starting to accept myself. And especially given the shit I have been through, I deserve to be celebrated, and I don't expect anyone to celebrate me. I will celebrate myself because no one helped me to get out of my black hole more than I helped myself. So I don't expect anyone to clap for me or pat me on the back. I will do it for myself. And this is dedicated to all of the INFJs who are in the place where I used to be. Hopefully, you will watch this video and it will resonate with you, and you will find that you really are beautiful too. So let's get started. Beautiful things about INFJs. Number 1, our ability to be introspective. Ain't nothing wrong with extroversion. I love how extroverts can just put themselves out there in the world and not be so afraid. But being an introspective person, I've always thought these crazy thoughts that I couldn't make sense of, and I was tormented by it, and I was afraid to talk to people about it for fear that I would sound like I was crazy and that they wouldn't understand me and that I would look like a freak of nature. So I hid away from everyone and from myself, and that's where my introversion came from. I equated being introspective with being weird, and being weird with being introverted. I hated being introspective. I hated being weird. I hated being an introvert, and I loathed myself, and I really wished that I could just be more shallow and not care so much. But the older that I got and the more people that I came across, I came to find that a lot of people in the world really lacked the ability to have a look at themselves. A lot of people in the world are really cruel and are really self-centered, and they don't even have the ability to be like, maybe I'm not doing something right here. What can I do to be a better person? What can I contribute to the world that is more valuable? Some people just believe that they're just doing all the right things in life, but I love so much about INFJs that we are so opposite of that, almost to a fault. INFJs have such a strong sense of self-conviction, and therefore they're always worrying about what they can do to make the world a better place and to make people happy, and they're always wondering how they can improve themselves. Sometimes we can take it to an extreme and we allow ourselves to get emotionally abused and used by people, or we're always on this like never-ending quest to be a better person, which will cause us to always feel like we're not good enough. But I do think it's beautiful, tragic but beautiful, that INFJs are that selfless. Like I said, sometimes it's absolutely not a healthy thing to do, but I think that if everyone in the world were just half as selfless as INFJs, the world would be a much better place. I love about INFJs how we're always trying to look within ourselves, and trying to do, what it takes to make the world a better place. Number 2, our introversion. I love how INFJs are so comfortable being alone. Again, ain't nothing wrong with being an extrovert and enjoying the company of others, but I love how INFJs can just be by themselves, just sit still and just be quiet. It shows that within themselves, there's already a really rich inner world, and they don't need the stimulation of the outside world to contribute to them. They're already so immersed in these beautiful things that go on within themselves, things that other people wouldn't understand. So they're just basking in it all on their own. INFJs will say about themselves that they are their own worst enemy, but let's face it, we are our own best friend too. I love how INFJs don't mind going on hikes by themselves, and they're just standing up there, soaking in the view and embedding that moment, the scenery, the picture into their minds. How they could just sit out their window on a rainy day and look out and be having a conversation with themselves in their heads about how peaceful and tranquil it is, and finding so much meaning and so much beauty and so much depth just sitting there in that one spot doing nothing but just looking out. Like, how many people can do that? Before my husband and I got married, I lived by myself for about 4 years. I lived in a really rural country town, and I didn't know anybody, and I just moved there because I took a job. It was just me and my dog, and my days were pretty much the same. I'd get up and then go to work, come home, maybe go for a run or go to the gym, and come back home and just have dinner by myself. And some people would have looked at my situation and thought that that was pretty pathetic, but it didn't bother me and it didn't make me go crazy. Some people would have gone crazy, but I liked my lonely, quiet life. When I think about my best days, I definitely count those days that I spent living alone and just being by myself. I enjoyed spending time with myself. Sometimes on a Friday afternoon, I'd get off work, and while most people were like popping open the bottles and getting ready to get the party started for the weekend, for me, I would oftentimes drive by myself into the mountains with just my dog and my guitar in tow. I'd find myself a nice spot up there on the mountains, and I'd just get out and sit underneath like a tree and just strum on my guitar until the stars came out. And my heart was so full. Like, I didn't need anything else to be happy. INFJs don't need much to be happy, and that makes us happy. Which brings me to my next point. Number 3, our simplistic souls. Yes, on another level, INFJs are very complex people, but I think that whenever you boil it down, INFJs love simplicity. We don't overcomplicate things. We are mostly concerned with the heart of everything. People describe the INFJ as being like an old soul, but what does that really mean? To me, being an old soul means you've learned to live and let go. You've learned to let go of a lot of things. You've been through the pain of trying to hold on to things, and you've come to learn that if it's not meant for you, you will never get to keep it, and you will never get to hold on to it. And you've come to learn that some things that you try to hold on to that you think are worth a lot really do not mean as much as you think it did in the end. Being an old soul means you have learned what's important in life, and you've learned that that's not a lot. Not a lot of things are important, and you've learned to see the beauty past all the pain. You've learned to be happy in spite of the sorrow. And because INFJs know these lessons, and somehow we learn these lessons early on, there just isn't too much that we really care about. We don't care about cars or trends or fashion. We don't care about money or possessions or fame. INFJs are not materialistic. It's thunderstorming really loud here. They care about the things that are truly valuable in life, the things that you are only lucky enough to have by the good grace of God. Things like family, love, your health. Some people struggle their whole life to achieve things that in truth aren't really worth anything. But for some reason, INFJs discover early on what the truly valuable things are in life, and they're happy to just have very little. Number 4, INFJs are open-minded and unopinionated. So if you look at the INFJ's cognitive stack, we do not have introverted feeling on there. Introverted feeling deals with how you feel about things, your inner opinion, your ability to judge, to see if things align with your morals and your values. I find people with dominant introverted feeling very admirable because they're very well versed on their stance and opinion on issues, sometimes very important issues that you cannot and should not be passive about. But then sometimes the difficulty with introverted feeling is that it can sometimes lead people, especially if they're unhealthy, to become unwilling to listen to others' points of views and unwilling to meet in the middle. I like about INFJs how, because we are focused on the feelings of others, we really take the time to listen to people's points of view, and because we have introverted intuition and introverted thinking, we want to learn new and relevant information. We crave to learn, and we aren't just listening to people because we are pushovers who can't think for ourselves or form our own opinion, but we listen because our introverted intuition and our introverted thinking want to hear different points of views, and with that knowledge eventually converge on what is the truth. We have a childlike thirst for truth. We aren't looking for things that fit what we believe in, but we are looking for things to believe in. We are unbiased in our search for truths, and I believe that the reason why we have a lot of credibility once we do converge on an opinion or belief is because we take in information in such an unbiased way. Our end goal isn't so much what we personally believe is right or what we want, but our end goal is the unbiased impersonal truth separate from what we believe or how we may feel. What's good not only for us but for everyone. I feel like this is the reason why INFJs don't get opinionated. We are ready and willing to listen to others because we understand that we don't know everything. We understand that there's more to learn if you take the time to listen, and we understand that everything is not black and white and everything is all shades of gray. We understand nothing is definite, and we have faith in humanity. Sometimes that's a good and bad thing, but because we have faith in humanity, we really believe that people will believe in what they do for a good reason, and they're not just believing it for like fun. We want to hear about why people believe in what they do, and when we listen with an open mind, we listen perceptively, and we listen to understand, not just to respond, which is what a lot of people do these days, unfortunately. And these days I feel like with social media platforms and with everyone easily able to voice their opinions and able to find others online who share their opinions, everyone feels really supported and everyone feels empowered, and I feel like people are becoming more and more opinionated and more polarized and less willing to listen and willing to be open-minded. I feel like these days taking a stance on an issue is just about like winning winning in order to feel good about yourself, winning to feel affirmed, and it's no longer about seeking like what is the actual truth. Everyone claims to hate this new like trend where you're expected to be like super woke about this and that, and you'll hear people say like, oh, if you're not joining the fight for the cause, then you're part of the problem, when it's like, do I really need to have an opinion on everything? Like, yes, there are some very important things going on in the world right now that you should not be silent about and you should not be passive about, but there are some things that like we really just like, we don't need to have an opinion on it. Everyone says they hate it, yes, sure, but I can say confidently that INFJs especially hate it because, like I said, we know that things aren't black and white, and we know that this side isn't all wrong and that side isn't all right. We know that there's a little bit of truth on both sides and there's a little bit of evil on both sides, and we just want everyone to be able to get along. So that's why INFJs don't really stick too strongly to one opinion, which leads me to my next point. Number 5, INFJs are logical. INFJs may not get very opinionated, but we are pretty logical. We take the time to to listen to multiple points of views, and we like to listen and gather knowledge about how and why things work to form a deeper and broader scope of view because of that. And this leads INFJs to be very logical despite being a feeling type. INFJs have introverted intuition and introverted thinking. So we are all about gathering information and processing information and organizing it in a way that makes sense. So we have like an internal database of information, and therefore we can always go back into our internal database of information to retrieve information and apply it to present information and see like what's making sense or what's not adding up. This way, even though we are feelers, we are very capable of making logical decisions. And because we don't have introverted feeling and we aren't making decisions concerned with how we feel, and because we are making decisions based on our extroverted feeling and based on how others feel, I think that the end result can be a very good thing with an INFJ making decisions for the logical good of everyone. This isn't a true introverted thinking style of decision making, but INFJs are very capable of making decisions with a mix of extroverted feeling and introverted thinking. They can make things meet in the middle, considering how this decision can be good for everyone and do it in a logical way that makes sense. You'd think that this would mean that INFJs would make good politicians because we are both empathetic and logical, but the most famous politician was Adolf Hitler, and we all know how that went down. But anyway, we're talking about beautiful things. I heard a really funny quote once that said INFJs are too logical for the feelers, but then too emotional for the thinkers, and I think that is just really funny because it's true. I am thankful to be an empathetic person, but at the same time be a person who has enough logic where I won't do something completely stupid based on emotions. Sometimes anyway. Number 6, INFJs get shit done. People may look at INFJs and think that we are really idle and we don't have a lot of hobbies, but it's because INFJs are perfectionists. We do things to perfectionism or not at all. We don't pick up hobbies or try our hand at new things just for the sake of trying it. But when we have decided that we are going to get into a hobby or we get started on something, we make sure that we really commit to it and we become good at it. And we see it through to the end and we make sure that it is done well. When we get started on a craft, we say to ourselves, okay, this is what I want the end product to be. When we decide on a major in college, we say, okay, this is the degree that I want and this is the job that I want with this degree. When there is something big that we have decided that we need to purchase, like a car or a house, we will do what it takes to make our financial situation work so that we can make that purchase. When we have decided that we want something, INFJs get shit done. And we rarely ever get sidetracked. And if we do, we take it really hard on ourselves to the point where we get really depressed, almost as if we already failed, even if we hadn't even necessarily failed, even if we just got sidetracked for a little bit. INFJs have this need to be like laser focused. INFJs may not always be the strongest member on a team, but they will always definitely be the most committed member of a team. Whenever a project has been like dragged out for weeks and everyone is starting to get weary and everyone's just like, oh, let's just, leave the project like this, it's good enough, the INFJ will be the one staying up late at the office or staying up late at home and working all night long to make sure that the project is done to perfectionism. Number 7, how intimate INFJs are with their loved ones. INFJs are introverts and usually don't have a lot of friends, but it's because we choose quality over quantity. I say this proudly. Other than my siblings and my husband, I probably only have 2 true friends. One of my best friends, who is an ISFJ, has been my best friend for pretty much my whole life, and she knows that I'm prone to do dumb things, but she still loves me through it. And then my other best friend, we actually met as adults. We met in our early to mid 20s. She is an ISFP. I thought she was a pretty cool chick when we first met. And around the time that she and I first met, I was going through some things in my life that were, it's like if you knew me, it was pretty apparent that, you know, I had just gone through like this really like traumatic thing in my life. And while most people were like, oh, she's a big girl, she'll get over it, this best friend was probably one of the very few people who reached out to me and was like, are you okay? Is everything okay? And I was just so touched by her like reaching out to me that I didn't want to like lie to her. So I told the truth about, you know, like what had happened, and she was like super supportive and not judgmental at all, and we have just been best friends ever since. I am in a long distance relationship with both of my friends, and we don't talk every day, but whenever we do talk, we just pick up right where we left off. It's like nothing had ever happened. Like we have like a timeless friendship. I know a lot of people with a lot of friends, but then they can drop their friends like it's nothing. And I know people who have like seasons of best friends. Well, they will hop from like one best friend to another. And I just can't help but to think like how shallow those relationships must therefore be, because my best friends and I, we have shared like the depths of our souls with one another, the good, the bad, the ugly. And when you have known one another that intimately, your souls are kind of just like bonded for life, and you're kind of just like soulmates now. So no offense to people who have a lot of friends, but I feel like when your soul is kind of shallow, you can't afford to have a lot of friends because they don't have to delve that deep to get into you, and it's not a deep plunge, and they can get to the core of you easily. But whenever you have a deep soul, only, you know, a few people can or will want to delve into you and take the time to like get through all of your layers and take the time to get to know you. And it's a long dive to get to the core of you, and then, you know, therefore whenever they get to the core of you, they're there to stay. INFJs are really friendly, and we seldom make enemies, and we're easy to get along with, but for the most part a lot of people can't really crack us, and so they assume that we must be really boring and dull therefore. So a lot of people cannot claim an INFJ as one of their close friends, but for those of you who are lucky enough to have an INFJ as a close friend, know that you have one of the most loyal and caring and loving people on your side, and they will never sell you out, and you will have a confidant in them for life. Number 8, INFJs are very virtuous people. They believe in doing good things and the right thing. They will seldom ever do something snaky like step on people to get ahead. They will seldom ever do things like cheat or be dishonest. They will seldom ever cheer for the upper dog just because they're the upper dog or because everyone else is cheering for them. INFJs are not followers. INFJs love to cheer for the underdog. One of the INFJ's favorite things is irony. Whenever everyone expects this to happen, but then something happens contrary to what everyone thought. They may have secondary extroverted feeling, but they love for people to get knocked off their high horses. They believe in poetic justice. They love when the playing field is leveled for everyone. They believe in virtuous things like everyone deserves to have a chance. Everyone deserves to have a chance to prove themselves. Everyone should look out for one another and be honest and be righteous. They have a really strong sense of self-conviction. They hate themselves whenever they don't do the right things. If you're an INFJ, please leave a comment below about, a time when you had the chance to turn your back on doing the right thing, but you didn't, and instead you took the hard path and you did the right thing. I'd love to hear. I am always so inspired by those stories. Number 9, I love how INFJs are the social chameleon. I sound like a broken record right now, but what are the INFJ's primary and secondary cognitive functions? That's right, introverted intuition and extroverted feeling. Because INFJs have dominant introverted intuition, we are intuitive. And then because we have secondary extroverted feeling, even though we are introverts, we are fascinated by people, and people are important to us. So being intuitive in combination with being very caring towards people, the result is that we can shapeshift with different people. So this is not the INFJ being fake. This is just the INFJ being an empath. Like I said in another video, INFJs are always trying to feel out the energy in the room, and we're always trying to feel where there is a gap in the energy, and then we try to fill in that missing gap because we are concerned with helping everyone to feel good. If there is an extrovert who's like carrying all the energy, we don't have a problem just sitting back and letting them take all of that. If there is an extrovert who we feel needs like the energy of other people in order to support their energy, we'll jump in and we'll hype them up. If there's an introvert who we sense like they want to come out of their shell but they don't know how to do it, then we can shapeshift into the extrovert and bring them out of their shell. Or if we see an introvert who is not trying to lift the energy, they just want to keep their presence low on the radar, then we could just roll with that too. People can really like the INFJ because of this. People can just be themselves around the INFJ, and the INFJ is very personable and they will just let everyone be themselves. Number 10, I love how INFJs are such compassionate people. If you ever want a pity party, just tell the INFJ your problems. They will automatically be like, oh my god, are you okay? And they will probably be more sad than you are. INFJs are strong empaths, and we will do backflips through hoops of fire while juggling daggers in order to emotionally support you. And even when the conversation is over and you've both gone home, the INFJ is going to be sitting at home thinking about you and worrying about you. INFJs really care for people, and they really find purpose in helping others. Number 11, INFJs are soft-hearted. INFJs have such pure souls. They're very somber souls, but they can find beauty in just the most mundane things, in things that most people wouldn't even blink twice about. INFJs can be watching a movie or be listening to a song and they'll be like bawling their eyes out like, this is so beautiful. INFJs are jaded for sure, but they definitely have a soft spot for a lot of things. No matter how many times an INFJ gets kicked down and no matter how jaded they think they are, they will never completely lose faith in humanity. They will always believe in beauty. They will always believe in things like good will triumph over evil. Their hearts are just that pure. Number 12, INFJs are calm. This one is half true, I guess. INFJs definitely feel things deeply. Whenever they are really emotional about something, whether they're feeling passionate about something or whether they're feeling angry, they tend to express their emotions in overdrive. I feel like because INFJs know this about themselves, that they can get really emotional whenever they are emotional, then they tend to compensate when they're not emotional by being really calm and mellow otherwise. INFJs know how much energy it takes out of us to be emotional, and INFJs are low energy people and we value our energy. So when we see people getting worked up over things that we know are not worth our energy, we just reserve our energy and we stay really calm and really uninvolved and indifferent. For some people who like to do things like speculate or debate just for the sake of speculating or debating, they can look at the INFJ and the INFJ is just like, you know, really unbothered and really indifferent and calm. They may think like, man, is that person a dull dud? But for a lot of people, some really admire that about the INFJ, how centered the INFJ is. A lot of people are very attracted to how mellow the INFJ is and want to be around them because of this. Maybe some of you INFJs out there have been in this situation before where you're involved with a group of people, like, you know, a group of coworkers or like your family, or like a group of like, you know, just acquaintances, and everyone is all up in one another's business. And you as the INFJ, you kind of get left out on the periphery of everything because, you know, you're quiet, you're not exerting a lot of energy, so no one really cares about you, and you're just like the supporting character in all of these people's stories. You're like the fly on the wall, but then they'll have like drama with each other and they'll like hate each other and then they'll try to come and like make an alliance with you and try to like buddy up with you and get you all riled up against the other guys, and you're just like, you don't even like me. You just want me as another body on your team, but in truth, you know that I have nothing to contribute to your petty wars against each other. I like that INFJs are really calm and mellow people. It gives us the advantage in so many ways. It makes a lot of people think that we are really dull, and therefore, you know, we get left out of all the drama, which is great for us because INFJs, we cannot do drama. And also, I like whenever, you know, we do say something, most people stop and listen because it's a rarity, because we don't exert ourselves as much. Like, we're not like exerting ourselves in our opinions just for the sake of doing it. They know that we're talking because something's important, and so they stop and listen. Some of the time, anyway. Other times, we just, still get ignored. But I mean, it's all good. Number 13, our intuition. I love how INFJs are intuitive. Everyone is kind of just living on the surface and just taking things for what it is. But the INFJ sees more angles of it and sees beyond. This makes INFJs more tolerant, wiser, more understanding than most. I love how people can come to the INFJ with their problems and they can walk away feeling at ease and having gained a new perspective, because the INFJ with their intuition is able to lay out, their problems and their situation, help people make sense of what it is that they're feeling, or help them make sense of what's happening. The INFJ can help people to compartmentalize and organize and map out situations that would otherwise be really difficult to navigate. The INFJ can help people think through and process their problems or their situation with a different lens, and people can feel really mystified by that, and they really appreciate how the INFJ is able to give them like a new and refreshing perspective. Number 14, I'm talking about this point last because this point is a really good summary of all of the previous points that I had mentioned. The thing that I probably love most about INFJs is that we are passionate. The majority of time people view INFJs as these really quiet people who don't have much to say. While that can be true that whenever an INFJ is protecting their energy and whenever they've decided that things aren't really worth their exertion, INFJs are incredibly introspective and thoughtful and intuitive. A combination of being quiet and being introspective results in listening, and listening results in learning. So that, combined with the INFJ's knack of being naturally intuitive, you'll find that INFJs know a lot more than they let people know. INFJs know it about themselves that they don't let people know everything about them, that they are fine just letting people assume things about them. Because INFJs know a lot, learn a lot, stay quiet, and introspectively process everything internally to themselves once they have converged on a stance, they become very, very passionate about it. Again, like I said earlier, when I talked about how INFJs are not very opinionated and they like listening to different points of views, not to support what they believe but to discover the unbiased truth, they have already had a lot of time to consider information that they've come across. They've already compared and contrasted a lot of different points of views and arguments, and therefore they can become very confident in their stance whenever they do finally converge on a stance, and they can be very passionate about it and very unlikely to sway, and for good reasons. I said the INFJs are not opinionated people, and we aren't. We aren't throwing our opinion out there on every little issue just for the sake of making ourselves heard. We pick and choose what we say, and whenever we say something, we want it to be impactful. So we are not opinionated, but whenever we do form an opinion, we know that we have taken the time to really think it through and analyze all different points of views about it. So we know that our opinion is very close to the truth, and we will defend our stance. And because we have analyzed our opinion through and through before we accepted it, we are very compelled by it, and we have a strong conviction. So we can speak very passionately and very genuinely about whatever topic it is, and people will definitely feel the power from our speech. And that's the reason why people find INFJs very attractive and very influential and very compelling. When an INFJ finally speaks, they're confident, they're well versed, you can tell they've, thought it through, and they're not just bullshitting, and they know their shit. And this will cause people to be, readily willing to get on board with whatever it is that the INFJ is selling. Earlier, I mentioned Hitler, and this was why Hitler was so influential. People described him as being very passionate and very genuine when he spoke. It ultimately led to something bad, but remember, Jesus was an INFJ too. I think INFJs have such a potential to do really good things in the world because of who they are. They're calm, they're open-minded, they listen, they're introspective, all that in combination with the fact that they're genuinely altruistic, compassionate, and virtuous. I really think it's going to be an INFJ who saves us all one day. So that concludes my video on beautiful things about INFJs. If you're an INFJ, comment below and tell me what your favorite thing about INFJs is. If you know an INFJ, tell me your favorite thing about them. I love receiving comments, and as always, look for my other videos so that we can hang out again.